Welcome to another edition of Plank of the Week. I'm Mike Graham, this is Talk Radio TV, and I'm joined this week by two very esteemed colleagues, Emily Hewertson, Tory activist of this parish, and of course Andre Walker, Talk Radio host, and many, many other things as well, I dare say.
Absolutely.
Welcome to Plank of the Week. This is one of the most successful shows that we have ever done. And bearing in mind that I've only done 2 shows, you know how important that is.
I've been enjoying it.
It's really good. I tell you what, I mean, I've been saying this jokingly that we could do it every single day.
Yes.
Because literally I was putting together a list of nominations over the last couple of days and I got to about 12. So I'm going to ask you, Andre, to kick us off and start us with your first plank of the week.
Hey, look, on a jokey note, my one has got to start with Keir Starmer.
Yes.
Now, there's so many
Sorry,
reasons.
do you mean Sir Keir Starmer?
Sir Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
Yes, as I once said, he said his dad works in a factory. Is that a factory farm for foie gras?
Well, he said his father was a tool maker, did he not?
Well,
which indeed a
he
lot of
is a
people
tool
said
maker,
he did succeed in that quite
He
well.
did succeed in that. Look, Keir Starmer has said this week that the Labour Party didn't appeal enough to middle-class voters. Now, I genuinely believe that what they have done is been obsessed with middle-class identity politics, not done enough for their core vote, which is why places like Lee in Greater Manchester have all gone Conservative. But the guy is so crazy. Do you remember when he was complaining that Labour's policy was not tough enough on Europe?
Yeah.
Read that he's saying of Jeremy Corbyn, that his position was insufficiently anti-British.
Well, was he also not the architect of their ridiculous Brexit strategy, which was to be leave in leave seats and remain in remain seats, which didn't make any sense to anybody.
Yeah, the problem is with Keir Starmer, and this is where he will come unstuck, when people think he's the new Tony Blair, pro-Europeanism is his religion. He will never back down from it. You know, they've attempted to stymie Brexit. You know, they'll try and ruin the negotiations for the trade deal. Though I have to say, with fishing, I don't think the EU trade deal is going to happen anyway. Don't care. But I think he's an absolute crank. And he's somebody that if you were a working class person in this country that wanted a working class party, he is the enemy.
Emily, what's your number one?
Okay, so my first one is nameless, as it happens. We don't actually know his name, but it's the random man from the Question Time audience which said that the people in the north that voted Tory and voted for Brexit were brainwashed by Rupert Murdoch.
Oh, yes. I remember that.
Yeah.
And luckily Sarah Baxter was on the panel, wasn't she, who's the deputy editor of the Sunday Times, and she was brilliant. She was just like, I've never heard so much rubbish in my life.
Exactly. It's such a condescending statement, and it is the reason why the Tories won and why Brexit won. I mean, all of these arguments were made looking down on northern people, and these kind of statements just further the
I suppose you just think to yourself, how much more do you want to alienate these people? Given that none of them have voted Labour now. Right, how much
but now you're basically going to say you were too stupid to vote Labour because you were brainwashed. And also, even after the election, I think, for the morning after, some Labour MPs who'd lost their seats were saying, oh, well, you know, these people are going to be sorry they voted Tory, you know, as if they were self-harming or something.
But as of today, the Conservatives are 20%
Is that right?
ahead in the opinion polls. You can't get that just off middle-class voters.
Exactly.
It has to, I think this northern vote that they're mocking, I think is solid.
Yeah.
I was talking the other day about Lee, where Andy Burnham held it with an 18,500 majority. James Grundy, the Conservatives, has it by 2. Now, admittedly, he's pretty popular locally, but I don't think it's a fluke.
No.
I think he's going to defend it.
Well, you know, this is what happened in Scotland, right? Labour used to run Scotland, basically, in every single aspect. And then suddenly along came the Scottish Parliament. The SNP got much more of a foothold. And Labour started to lose to the SNP in Scotland at the local elections because people were saying, hang on a minute, Labour have been representing us for decades.
They take them for granted.
Yeah, and they've done
take
nothing.
them
The
for
poorest
granted.
parts of Glasgow, the poorest parts of Edinburgh, you know, the real, you know, inner city, you know, nightmare, sort of the Gorbals, all of that. They owned all of it. They never improved any of it.
Well,
People have been living in poverty for years.
Labour's other problem, which I only just noticed
Well,
myself.
my point was going to be they're not going to get Scotland back.
No.
They might not get the North back.
Definitely not.
Well, the other thing is when you look at it, one thing that... So I thought the reason that the Conservatives were popular in Northern England was just Brexit.
Yeah.
But there is another effect that the former Labour MP, Ronnie Campbell, mentioned on a show that I did for Talk Radio, where he said Labour were terrible at regenerating towns. They loved big shopping centres in cities, but when you went to average little towns, they'd done nothing at all.
No, also, they hate the countryside.
Yes.
They despise the farmers. They despise anyone that lives in the country. They don't realise there's an awful lot of working class people that live in the country.
That's right.
You know, who can't afford to live in the cities. But anyway, I'm going to give you my first one because it's going to be Sophie Khan, a woman that I hadn't heard of until recently. But she apparently is a solicitor, and I really don't like lawyers. I have to tell you, I've got a definite kind of
Is she
bias.
replacing Jolyon as the biggest nutter on the league?
Well, I mean, Jolyon Moron, who still hasn't been heard of, has
where
made
is he?
Well, I mean, he hasn't been seen or heard from since Boxing Day, right? Somebody said the other day on Twitter, one of these FBPE types, oh, don't worry, Jolyon's got a rescue plan. He's going to launch some kind of lawsuit before Friday, and we won't be leaving. It's like, get real, man. He's still trapped in a chicken wire, in his wife's kimono, for God's sake. So anyway, this is not a QC this time. Sophie Khan is a solicitor who specialises basically in suing the police.
Yes.
That's how she makes her money. She had the temerity to say, over the course of that terrible case last week about the police officer who was hit by the machete, chopped to bits by Mohammed, I think Ragwan, I think his name was. This was a guy called Stuart Owen. He gets 16 years for attacking this police officer who stopped him because he didn't have insurance on his car. She says that the police officer should be prosecuted for using excessive force. I mean, literally lost about 2 pints of blood. I mean, where do these people come from?
Well, yeah, but here's the worry. If you remember the Phil Schreiner thing, the guy who was suing the army all the time on behalf of people who just made up allegations of wrongdoing, what they're trying to do is deconstruct the police, the military, anybody who's patriotic, and doing it kind of piece by piece and case by case.
Yeah.
That's why somebody like that is not just ignorant, not just obnoxious, and not just
dangerous,
but actively dangerous.
Oh, I think so. But this is the beauty of Planks of the Week, because you can also call out people who are quite dangerous. I mean, Maya Touzi famously nominated the Iranian government, which I thought was a brilliant step in the right direction.
I just wonder at what point are we going to get sued for some of this?
Well, I think you've come quite close to it in your first nomination, but let's go with your second one.
My second one is Lord Adonis.
Yes.
Now, look, I don't know whether this is funny or pathetic or embarrassing or
all of the above.
All of the above. The reason is because it started with the whole we're not willing to handle the Brexit 50 pence that Lord Adonis started. Now, by the way, I don't particularly like the fact that my passport says European Union on it, but I'm not refusing to carry one on that basis. But then I think it got quite sinister when people were talking about putting swastikas on the 50 pence piece, and they're doing it on Holocaust Memorial Day.
And these are kind of deranged people, aren't they, who can't actually tell the difference. These are the kind of people who are now saying they want Britain to somehow fall into disrepair. They want the economy to crash because it will be proven that they were right all along.
Exactly.
What sort of idiots are they?
They keep accusing us of only voting Brexit because we wanted a blue passport.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they're complaining about 50 pence pieces.
I know.
Mean, if anyone's got any Brexit 50p pences that they don't want, they can send it my way. I'll happily have them.
Maybe we should set up some collection points, just have a few blue boxes with Brexit written on them.
Do you know the Royal Mint have offered, you're going to think I'm joking, the Royal Mint have offered that you can go to their place in Wales and strike your own Brexit 50p, which presumably means you just press a button and the same thing comes out.
I presume so. But he wasn't alone, of course, was he, Lord Adonis? Because there was Brian Cox, the actor, who also said it. Alistair Campbell said, who somebody told me the other day had kind of returned to normal. Obviously, that's not true. And that guy, Philip Pullman, the creator, who's been on the Planks list before, the creator of His Dark Materials, who you'd think, having made $1 million, or in fact 35 million quid out of the people of this country and various people around the world, you'd think he'd be a bit more sense.
Also, look, because he's blocked me on Twitter, I assume...
Adonis, has he?
No, Lineker's probably involved. Lineker's normally
Well, Lineker's blocked me, and he's going to come up a little bit later on as well.
But have you seen that they're all now with a black marker doing love and EU over their 50p, so they get their own 50p?
Hey, wouldn't it be great if we...
By the way, we should tell you that it's a great T-shirt. Brexit got done. Very pleased to see you wearing that. What about that sign that was put up at the White Cliffs of Dover? Oh, have you got some for us?
I do. I have presents.
Gifts.
Just since we're, winding up FBPE.
Right.
Let's wind them up a little bit more.
That's fantastic.
I'm not being funny, but you've given me a medium. Michael, what's the chance?
Yeah, mine's a medium as well. I'll put it on my arm.
We can sort that out later. Don't you worry about that one.
That'll do for one
I'm sure we can sort that out.
That'll be fine.
Anyway, it's all about annoying the FBPE.
Yes, absolutely.
Winding them up as much as possible.
But did you see some idiot put a big banner across the White Cliffs of Dover saying, "We still love you, EU"?
I don't.
No, I never did love them.
No.
So, to be honest, if you love a political organisation, I really think it's probably time to go and see the psychiatrist.
The other thing is,
it's not what they're meant for.
It's really, I think, much more about cultural identity. It's being able to say, "Oh, I'm the intellectual. I understand."
it's all about that.
Because when I see, and there's people all over the place, all over the media, who sort of go, oh, you don't understand the EU. I used to work at the European Parliament. I can tell you the way legislation's made in Europe. I guarantee you that these lovies at the BBC
Not very well,
can't
I think is the
do
answer.
that.
No, of course they can't. But also this idea, I mean, like they've all gone mad about the comma missing. They're calling it the Oxford comma.
Yes.
Well, to be honest, I couldn't care less whether it's got a comma, a full stop, a semicolon. I don't care.
No.
It's a 50p piece. You're not supposed to be holding it up as a piece of art.
And also, let's be honest with you, complaining about the Oxford comma does talk, by the way, I do know what the Oxford comma is, but it talks to the fact that you are an elitist.
Yes.
If your number one complaint is you failed to put the Oxford comma.
I know.
How did you even notice?
I know.
I just
Unbelievable.
Don't understand.
What's your number 2, Emily?
Okay, so my number 2 is Len McCluskey.
Ah.
And the reason that I say this is, let's be honest, like Jeremy Corbyn, he is as Eurosceptic as it gets.
Right.
But he just pretends he's not. He's literally in a loony world. And this week...
He also pretends he's a working man from a trade union, but he likes to dine out on very fine wines and champagnes. And did he not go to the Champions League final and was spotted drinking champagne in some expensive restaurant in Madrid?
I got a train to Paddington Station, and there was this lady behind me who had a wheelchair, and her relative was actually quite rude. She was going, well, my relative wants to get off the train. Are you not going to help? So I thought, all right, fair enough. And the bloke in front offered as well, and it was me and Red Len.
Was it?
And so literally, this woman.
What, today?
No.
And it was
Just
clear.
today?
Look, I'm not claiming I'm as the other day.
The other day, yeah.
I'm not claiming to be as famous as Len McCluskey, but she recognised both of us,
Really?
and he recognised me. It was
Really?
like a really odd situation.
That must have been tricky.
What are the chances? Anyway, this week...
So what's he done?
He has nominated... he's nominated Rebecca Long Bailey for leader, and then Richard Bergen for deputy. But the weird thing is, he was asked why he nominated Richard over Angela Rayner, and he said because Richard had a vision. So he was obviously asked, I think it was on Newsnight, what his vision was, and he just couldn't answer. This is the problem.
Yeah.
They don't have an answer. And
the average person on LSD has a vision.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to put them in charge of the country.
Well, the question I've got, which I've never had answered properly, is that, you know, when Rebecca Long Bailey and Angela Rayner say that they're flatmates, what does that actually mean? I don't really want to think about it, to be honest, but, you know, it's all very odd. Are they flatmates now? Were they flatmates?
Yeah.
I thought she was married and lived in
I need
Cheshire.
more details.
In a big, yeah.
I must admit, I had a friend of mine.
Oh, imagine waking up and seeing Angela Rayner in the morning.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine who, when he first became an MP, him and 2 other MPs shared a flat together.
Yeah.
3-bedroom place. I went, that's all well and good.
Yeah.
But if the 3 of you are single, right, you want to bring a bird back,
Yeah.
right, that's not ideal.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm all for that. I mean, I think they should be housed in a sort of hostel type situation anyway. I don't think they should have the right to have proper, you know, flats and houses in London if they've got a constituency somewhere else that we pay for.
You know, the Taxpayers Alliance said that for the MPs that were coming from outside London who needed to live in London, they should be given flats that owned by the taxpayer in the Olympic Park.
Yes.
Apparently the reason that didn't happen was the police didn't want to end up patrolling it, because as you can imagine, if 400 MPs all live in one building...
Well, surely it's better than... I mean, they don't patrol them where they live now, do they?
No,
Why
but
would
they're
they
all
have
different places.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, the other option I've always suggested, which I prefer actually, is a prison ship type situation, parked literally right next to the Palace of Westminster in the river, you know, and they literally don't even have any taxi expenses. They walk to their house.
Or to be honest with you,
genius.
I wouldn't be against this. If you gave me an office in Parliament and you just had a camp bed,
Yeah.
I'd just go, all right, that'll do.
Sorted.
That's fine by
Sorted.
me.
He also claimed that his policies...
I'll remind you of that if you ever get there.
Yeah, true. He also said that Corbyn's policies was loved, and that the only reason that they lost was Brexit. I mean, we've already talked about that. It's just blooming lunatic.
They won the argument, remember?
Absolute
Everybody
fan.
thought their policies were so popular, they didn't vote for them.
Exactly.
I mean, it's sort of counterintuitive, isn't it? You know, they were brilliant. They were so good, but actually nobody wanted them.
Yeah, that's right.
But,
It's just delusional.
well, I'm going to revisit somebody who's been on the planks list before, and I'm sorry to have to do it, but it's Hugh Grant. He was on it before, of course, because he was one of the few people who had an even worse track record than Labour, because every single candidate that he backed in the election lost, right? Everybody that he went to talk on their behalf all didn't get in.
Do you know what annoys me about Hugh Grant when they're going, oh, Hugh Grant, when he played Jeremy Thorpe, the Liberal leader, oh, he's marvellous. We all thought he always played the same person.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jeremy Thorpe was an awkward English fop.
Yes,
Right.
right.
In what way?
Yeah.
In
I
what
mean,
way
to
is
be
that
honest,
radically
and to be
different?
fair, I don't mind him as an actor. A lot of these people I don't mind as an actor. I mean, it's like Robert De Niro. I love as an actor. He's turned into a complete plank, however, with his kind of Trump derangement syndrome, where, you know, he goes on to... I mean, Trump actually dealt with him very well when he said he banned him from Nobu. And Trump said, well, actually, since you charge $250 for a steak, I don't think many of my supporters will be going to your restaurant either. You know,
So
I
true.
mean, it's such an elitist thing to do.
true.
Anyway, but But Hugh Grant this week, as part of his PR for this new movie called The Gentleman, I think, which actually does look like quite a good film, he said basically Britain was finished. Those were his words. Britain is finished. The questioner said something like, obviously Brexit is happening. It's a big month for Britain. It's going to be. Is there nothing positive you could say about it? And he literally said, the country is finished.
But Mike, here's what annoys me about the disgusting hypocrisy of this, because if you think back to the CBI and all these organisations saying, if we do not join the euro, 2 million job losses, all this sort of thing, what's going to happen is there's going to be an economic boom next year. Everybody knows it's going to happen in the UK.
I'm calling it the Brexit dividend.
Yeah,
literally.
And all these people like Hugh Grant are going to just forget that they said all this rubbish, in the same way that George Osborne has forgotten about the 800,000 job losses, and Nick Clegg has forgotten about the 2.5 million job losses from not joining the euro.
I had Dale Vince in the show today, the ecotricity millionaire, right, who's one of these people that bangs on about climate change, and he's the guy that actually was funding Jolyon Moron's cases up in Scotland, right? And in fact, he didn't give me a proper answer as to what he'd done with him, because I said, have you got him hidden away in a cupboard somewhere?
Can I just say to you, one big advantage is, you think to yourself, what can we do with Jolyon? Send him to Scotland. It'd be worth the money, wouldn't it?
It would, absolutely right. He's one of those guys as well that's got that kind of surprised look on his face. Whenever he's standing, he's kind of looking like this, and you go, has somebody got their hand up your back or something, working you? But he said to me, well, of course, everybody knows that Brexit has already cost us 120 billion. I said, what, less than the actual annual salary of the NHS then? So that's not too bad, is it? And then he said, and the economy's not performing properly. I said, well, it's still performing better than any other country in Europe. So and he said, well, that's not really the point. I said, well, surely it is the point. If you're going to say that the economy isn't performing because of Brexit, how is it that the economies in Europe are performing even worse?
The other thing is they have all these projections based on the following thing. Everybody knows that Brexit is about getting away from big government regulation. So basically what they say is, if we leave the European Union and continue with all the big government regulation that the EU put on, that we now no longer have to, the economy will be worse. Well, that's pretty obvious.
Yeah, right.
But it's not going to happen.
No, of course it's not going to happen.
It's just scaremongering. It is absolute scaremongering. And what annoys me about people like Hugh Grant, you're like, so why do you want to remain so much? And it's like, so my daughter can have freedom. Yeah. I'm sorry, it is a lie. You're still going to be able to travel to Europe and enjoy Europe outside of the EU. And these lies really need to stop. Yeah. It is scaring people that, aren't as informed.
I had a guy ring me up the other day. I just said to him, I don't believe you. He rang up, right? He was claiming to be a businessman, claiming to be a manufacturer of medical equipment, of which he was the only one in the world. He said he had an office, an outfit in Germany, in Britain, and in Ireland. And I said, well, what are you worried about? He said, well, I'm not going to be able to put together the machinery in the same way as I could before. And I said, well, why not? And he couldn't explain. Then I said, well, surely if you're the only manufacturer of this particular thing that is sold, then you haven't got any competition, so you don't need to worry about it, do you? And then then I said to him, why don't you give me the name of your company? Oh, I can't tell you that, it's confidential. I said, well, I don't believe you. It was total BS.
Anybody watching this, and I include you two as well, we've all got to get back onto, do you remember the Brexit famine? They've not mentioned that for a while.
No.
I forgot about that bad boy.
Next week,
also on Saturday, don't try and buy any asprin, because there won't be any in the shops. Right? If you've got a hangover after the Friday night party season,
do you know the funny thing is about this,
there'll be no Nurofen.
The funny thing is about this, Mike, this show is a weekly show, so half the people who watch this show will know that the Brexit famine hadn't happened by the time they watch it.
Of course, absolutely right. So time for your third one.
It's actually quite a serious thing. It's Emily Thornberry, who, when she addressed Holocaust Memorial Day in Islington, used it as an opportunity to talk about Jeremy Corbyn's anti-racist credentials. I think that what I see now on Twitter and what I see coming from the Labour Party and all these recordings that have taken place, whatever, it is very clear that nobody has done more to promote the cause of anti-Semitism in Europe since Adolf Hitler than Jeremy Corbyn. And I find it repellent. And I'll tell you something else about it. I am so genuinely shocked. I didn't think it was a thing. We all know that on the right we get accused of being racist. I did not know that people were genuinely racist until Jeremy Corbyn and his cohort took over the Labour Party. Now, he is irredeemable, but to stand in front of a group of Holocaust survivors and start evangelising about Jeremy Corbyn, I think is shameful, and that's why I say Thornberry.
Yes, no, I think you're absolutely right. I could go along with that one as well. You might as also, I know it's a slightly different thing, but Rebecca Long-Bailey is the same woman, by the way, who gave him 10 out of 10 for Labour leader. And you know what's wrong with the Labour Party when they do, and I was talking to James Bixton about this yesterday on Off Air, when they have a sort of a whip round to decide who's the greatest Labour leader ever, and Jeremy Corbyn wins, and you go, so not Clem Attlee then,
No.
or maybe
Exactly.
Harold Wilson, or Tony Blair, who actually managed to win 3 elections.
Win elections,
Oh
yeah.
no, not him. No, let's have the anti-Semite who loses everything.
It's really funny, isn't it? Because Tony Blair, whatever you think about Iraq, Tony Blair should be an iconic figure for Labour, and he's actually just a
Well, I mean, he
pariah.
hasn't helped himself, to be fair, has he?
No, well, I mean, he's not that
recently,
lovable.
not recently. But I do find it really shocking because all of the potential leader candidates have kind of latched onto the anti-Semitism thing and said, I will be the person that solved it. But actually, you were in the same cabinet as
Totally.
And
Jeremy
didn't solve
Corbyn
it.
saying that there was
Exactly.
zero tolerance approach.
Yeah, I mean, you can't
So
just
why
keep
didn't you do
saying.
more,
well,
or
just
why
can't,
didn't you
yeah,
leave
exactly.
if
You
it was
can't
so
just keep
bad?
saying.
Funny enough,
this is what we're doing, and then do nothing.
Lance Foreman MEP, who I think is brilliant, by
Yeah.
the way. I know he's not popular with everybody because obviously he walked out
He
the
left
Brexit
the Brexit
Party.
Party, yeah.
I'm a
But
fan.
he was saying that obviously he was at Westminster Central Hall at the big
He
event.
makes a good salmon bagel as well, by the way.
Salmon.
His food
The
is
salmon.
sensational.
And his food is amazing.
I mean, look, we can get away with
10 out
just
of 10.
blatantly advertising.
Well, no, he came into the show the other week and he brought some salmon bagels
Well,
with
no,
him.
if you ever
The Boris bagel.
if you ever meet him, he sends you basically a massive
yeah.
smoked salmon as
Yeah,
a
yeah.
present afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, I had one at Christmas. But he was saying that he really felt a twinge when Jeremy Corbyn showed up at that event. I mean, it's difficult because obviously the Holocaust Memorial Trust, presumably they organise it, they don't want to be seen to be factional or party political.
No, of course.
But Jeremy Corbyn's behaviour is shameful.
It really is.
Absolutely.
It really is. Your
Absolutely.
third one, Emily?
So my third one is David Schwimmer, probably from the most overrated comedy of all time, controversial opinion. But he played Ross in Friends,
Right.
and he's maybe slightly irrelevant now. But he did an interview with The Guardian, I think it was yesterday, where he basically said that he recognises his white privilege.
Oh, God.
And the thing is...
What is wrong with these people?
Is that he doesn't mention that his biggest privilege over other people is the millions of pounds he's got in his bank account.
At one point, I
It's
think they
just-
would get. Well,
it's
they're not
just
getting paid
deluded.
some ludicrous amount of money, like 2 million episodes.
But isn't he one of those people in the category now where even though he's trying to be very woke, his TV show is a bit out of date,
Yeah.
and all
I
the
know.
politically correct lefties now just think
Well, I
it's
think
racist.
there's so
drivel
many
or-
of these people on the arts side of the world. I mean, I was watching an interview with Ewan McGregor the other night. I don't know what the film is that he's even in, but I think he was on the red carpet somewhere, and he was banging on about misogyny. And he said, it's been a privilege to do this film because it highlights the misogyny in the country and all the sexism in the country. And I'm thinking, I'm pretty sure there was a story about you messing around on your wife, mate.
Exactly.
And I don't really think we need any moral guidance from the from the hoi polloi. My third one is the BBC. Now, the BBC have featured quite well on this particular show already, and we've only been doing
Imagine
it for a
my
month,
shock.
right? Now, there's several reasons why. Number one, inexplicably, and I'm no defender of Victoria Derbyshire, they suddenly decided to axe the Victoria Derbyshire show.
Yes.
Now, it seems to have been a unilateral act. They haven't axed anything else. I mean, if you're going to start doing that, let's nominate a few other shows, like The One Show.
Yeah.
You could axe that, nobody would care. Axe Question Time. That's a load of rubbish, right? You could certainly axe Newsnight, which has just hired Lewis Goodall from Sky, the Labour activist. Then, as if that wasn't bad enough, Kobe Bryant dies in a helicopter crash. They then show a video image on the news at 10, the night that he's died, of LeBron James, a completely different black superstar basketball player, and they say it was human error. And you go,
tell you what-
no, that's not human error. That is total and utter
Tell you
plankery.
what upsets me about the BBC, this whole BBC Studios thing, right, I might have the figures wrong here, but they're always talking about who's earning the most at the BBC. And so, officially, Peter Kay does not appear on the list because he's not paid by the BBC, he's paid by Goodnight Vienna, a production company he owns that the BBC contracts.
Similar with Graham Norton, I think.
Yeah,
he earns some of his money from the BBC, but other money through a production company that produces the Graham Norton show.
And Goodnight Vienna is worth £25 million. Now, it also does Peter Kay's tours and whatever.
Right.
But they're so dishonest about this. And you think to yourself, they're sat cutting Victoria Derbyshire because they've got no money and then paying, just giving a lottery win every year to Gary Lineker.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
don't
Gary
get me
Lineker's my
started.
final reason why the BBC are on the plank list, because it's not Gary Lineker, but he actually came out with an interview with The Guardian this week and said, we should probably make the licence fee voluntary. Well, it's a bit it's a bit like us saying that we shouldn't be don't bother listening to any adverts on Talk Radio, even though that's what pays our wages, because they're all rubbish.
Yeah,
this is a guy who gets 1.7 million a year.
To be fair, if they didn't pay him, they probably would be able to have a voluntary scheme.
The bad thing about the Victoria Derby show, I think, is although I didn't like the show, I remember her bizarre comment about when she called Jeremy Hunt, you know what? And
Yeah,
said,
but they've all
it's
done
normally
that.
men that say
Oh,
that.
but they've all
besides-
accidentally done that. I'm
Exactly,
sorry,
it's a bit of a
I've never
common
accidentally
thread.
done that.
Neither.
I don't believe it.
Neither. But
No,
the bad
neither.
thing about that is that they didn't even tell her. She found out from the Times article, which I actually
That's
thought was
bad.
shocking.
That is shocking. And also,
And they're all
why?
on about
But also,
promoting
why?
women.
But also, if they've suddenly got to save 80 million quid, you're not going to tell me they've saved 80 million quid by just doing that.
No.
And they
Surely
don't
they
appear
can
to. They haven't done anything else.
No, absolutely not.
It's a very
absolutely not.
bizarre decision. So we now here's how it works, right? We've now got 3 nominations each. The way we like to do it is each of us then chooses the one that somebody else did. So I could choose yours if you like. You can choose mine, and you can choose Emily's. Did you see what I mean? So you pick your favourite
Well, let's
one.
just make it obvious, because the BBC's definitely in the final 3, isn't it?
Well, I think it should
It's
be.
got to be. There's 3 things that it's done by.
All right. Okay. Well, I would pick Lord Adonis from you.
I would
I
too.
have to. Can I say I'm so pleased you say that, because on Brexit week we've got to have Adonis.
You've got to have
We've
Adonis
got
in
to have
there. Do you
Adonis.
know, I think I've told you this before, he once came into the tent of Common Sense down in Westminster and crossed his legs in front of me, and he was wearing Euro socks.
no.
Blue socks
This
with
is
the
so
with the
sad.
stars.
Len-
I think I'm going to go with Len
Len
McCluskey.
I
McCluskey.
think so.
Yeah, Len McCluskey.
Just in general.
So that
I
means
think
we've now
so.
got the down to the final 3. We've got Len McCluskey, we've got the BBC, and we've got Lord Adonis.
Even though I nominated Lord Adonis,
Yeah.
I think we all know the BBC.
Yeah.
I think the
The real
BBC.
winner. There's no
'cause
competition.
you know, I feel as though now that Brexit is done, as your T-shirt says, the BBC is the new target, isn't it? The BBC is. I'm just going to give them a kicking until such time, because I firmly believe actually that they will not have the same method of payment by this time next year. I think this year is the end for the licence.
time
fee.
is
And of
up.
course,
Like
and of
the
course we
EU.
film
Time's
on a
up.
day today when this company has announced that they want to do far more
Yes.
television,
Yep.
far more shows like this,
Yep.
which I think is a marvellous thing. And I think actually people watching this show are part of a vanguard which is moving against the traditional media,
Exactly.
because the traditional media hate us
Yeah.
and hate what we stand for.
Yep.
Well, you know what? The feeling's mutual.
Yeah, absolutely
Exactly,
right.
and they're the planks at the end of the day because they've just won plank of the week.
There we are. So Emily Hewertson, Andre Walker, thank you very much for Plank of the Week. Plank of the Week this week is the BBC.